Today, the Dodgers will hold their World Series parade in downtown LA, celebrating their second World Series win in 4 years after beating the Yankees in 5 games. But before we get to the wild crowds and drunk speeches, I want to go back to one of the most crucial moments in the series, a moment that defines the success of the Dodgers over the last few years. Game 5, bottom of the 8th. Dodgers are up by 1 after coming back from a 5-run deficit. Things are looking good, but the game isn't over yet. Yankees first baseman Anthony Rizzo, an Italian name if I've ever heard one, stepped up to the plate with 2 outs, but the tying run on first base. All Rizzo had to do was make enough contact to keep the inning alive and maybe send the series back to LA for Game 6. The pressure was on for Dodgers pitcher Blake Treinen. But like watching the New Year's ball drop or Geraldo Rivera opening his vault, the at-bat was sort of anticlimactic. Treinen dismantled Rizzo in just 4 pitches, striking him out with a nasty slider that started at Rizzo's hip in the center of the plate, but broke so hard it ended up behind his back foot. Rizzo swung and missed by a lot, and the Dodgers won the whole thing 3 outs later. To the casual baseball fan, this might have just looked like another great pitch by one of the Dodgers' best relievers. But to baseball junkies out there, it was a calculated pitch the Dodgers have worked tirelessly to perfect through analytics, using years of data to help Treinen switch up his grip and quadruple the pitch's horizontal break. It was moments like this, when tireless preparation meets the perfect opportunity, that have helped the Dodgers win another championship. And it's a perfect example of why the Dodgers have become one of baseball's most feared franchises. Let's take things back to 2011. Charlie Sheen was ranting about tiger blood. Kim Kardashian was ending her 2-month-long marriage to Chris Humphries, and everyone was obsessed with the royal wedding for some reason. It was a different time for the world, and definitely a different time for the Dodgers. Back then, the Dodgers were struggling. They ranked 11th in payroll, spending even less than smaller market teams like the Minnesota Twins, Detroit Tigers, and St. Louis Cardinals. Their fans were spending less money too, with the Dodgers being outdrawn by the Angels for the first time in 62 years since both teams were in Southern California. And if that wasn't bad enough, MLB had filed a lawsuit against team owner Frank McCourt, accusing him of looting $189 million of team revenue for his own interests. Now, to avoid legal issues, Frank McCourt put the team up for sale. While the Dodgers had a substantial amount of debt on their books, there was no shortage of interested buyers. Mark Cuban, Stan Kroenke, Steve Cohen, even Jared Kushner were all interested in buying the team. Eventually, the consortium Guggenheim Baseball Management acquired the Dodgers with a bid that would make Dr. Evil blush, offering up $2.1 billion for the storied but struggling franchise, a number nearly 2 times higher than what anyone had ever spent on a professional sports team at the time, baseball or any other sport. For Dodgers fans, this was sort of a weird situation because no one really knew what to expect from Guggenheim. For starters, Guggenheim Consortium sounds like an art museum that serves as a front for some sort of James Bond villain. Not to mention the fact that these guys from Wall Street seemingly didn't really know anything about baseball. On the other hand, a massive company like Guggenheim managing billions of dollars in assets could theoretically compete with the top dogs from a capital perspective in a league with no salary cap. No matter how you initially felt about the change in ownership though, the future of the franchise started to look bright almost immediately. Magic Johnson stepped in to join the ownership group and told reporters change would be coming.
First, we're going to talk to everybody because we got to know what's been going wrong. See, from the outside, you can say, well, Frank wasn't doing it, but it's one thing to talk to the people who are in it every single day. So on Monday, I'll be meeting with some of the staff. Tell me what's been going on, what's been going wrong, what's been going right, and let's make it better. We're going to change some things. We got to do things better than we've done them before.
Johnson assured the players that they would have everything they needed to compete for championships, and if anyone knows a thing or two about winning, it's Magic freaking Johnson. This wasn't just lip service either. The Dodgers immediately signed the largest local market TV deal in sports, guaranteeing $8.35 billion over the next 25 years. With increased revenue from the TV deal and the bankroll from their new owners, the Dodgers were now in a prime position to change their strategy. Instead of watching teams like the Yankees rank first in spending year after year, the Dodgers started to throw cash around and make big moves in free agency, going on to lead the league in payroll 8 times since 2013. But just because you spend money doesn't mean you always get a return on your investment. Just ask National fans after the team signed Steven Strasburg for $245 million. So, to avoid dumping money into bad investments, the Dodgers decided to do their homework first and built out a huge analytics division. In 2014, LA convinced Andrew Friedman to leave the Tampa Bay Rays and move out west. Friedman was only 37 years old, but he was seen as a rising star in the business, a Wall Street guy who used analytics to build out one of the league's most competitive teams year in and year out on a shoestring budget. Now he'd be given free rein and a much bigger pile of cash to work his magic. Friedman was named the Dodgers president of baseball operations, a position that literally didn't even exist under the previous ownership group, and he was given a green light to do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. Friedman got to work right away, starting with overhauling the team's front office infrastructure. In time, the Dodgers staff directory started to look a lot more like a tech company than a baseball franchise. Friedman hired nearly a dozen quantitative analysts, a handful of data engineers, and enough analytically driven scouts to track every player in the country. Like if Bill James had created Big Brother. So how exactly did this roster get put together? Well, discipline, creativity, and a whole lot of math. Sure, the Dodgers committed nearly $1.5 billion to just 4 players in Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and Freddie Freeman. But the team philosophy really revolved around a mix of stars, combined with cheap, young, but impactful talent. The Dodgers rarely miss on big contracts because they're so careful and always do their homework. And that work ethic applies to the draft as well. In Friedman's first 2 drafts, the team landed high-impact players like catcher Will Smith, second baseman Gavin Lux, and all-star starter Walker Buehler, all without a single pick in the top 20. They also utilized the minor leagues to their advantage, going from the league's 14th ranked farm system when Friedman took over to consistently being ranked in the top 10 every year since. This is especially impressive considering Friedman has made a ton of big trades over that time period, acquiring guys like Yu Darvish, Manny Machado, Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, and Mookie Betts, now the only active player with 3 World Series rings. It's not just drafting, developing, and trading that makes the machine run so smoothly, though. There's also a lot of creative accounting going on. Now, Shohei Ohtani's contract is obviously all deferred for the most part, but when you add in Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, James Paxton, and Teoscar Hernandez, more than $915 million of the $1.25 billion spent by the Dodgers last offseason is deferred until 2028 to 2044. See, kids, math really is important. I'm not just praising the Dodgers because they happen to have won the World Series either. MLB veterans across the league have consistently said that the Dodgers were head and shoulders better than any other team when it comes to using analytics to win games. Here's veteran pitcher Ross Stripling talking about what makes the Dodgers organization so successful.
No, I definitely think there's teams that are significantly ahead of others. I was raised in the Dodgers organization where I would say they could be on a pedestal all by themselves. I would imagine there's a couple teams up there with them. But, really it comes down to an investment in like human capital, right? Like the early teams, the Dodger teams that I was a part of, Farhan Zaidi was an assistant GM. Anthopoulos was an assistant GM, and obviously then you have Friedman and his guys as well. So like they were investing in elite human talent and capital just for their information, right? And what they can bring to the table and an edge that you can get there. So that's a expense that a lot of teams don't have, right? That the Dodgers do. And then you move on to the Blue Jays, Giants, and A's for me. And I would say, yeah, I've seen a big difference as far as just an investment in analytics and how they use it and how they're able to relay it down from the front office through the assistants, through the coaching staff, down to the players. And, the Dodgers were elite at that. And I would say I have not been on another team that is as good as they are at that.
Andrew Friedman and his staff rightfully received a lot of credit for the Dodgers' success, with 40 anonymous baseball executives recently voting Friedman as the league's best executive in a poll from The Athletic. But what's most impressive is how their entire organization works as a whole, described perfectly by Friedman last week.
It's hard. It's hard to get to this point. It's hard to withstand things that can go on during the course of a season. If I had to give one answer, I would say it's collaboration. I think between our scouts, our player development, our pro scouts, our analysts, our front office, that just allows us to work in concert. What our player development staff is working on with guys as they come up to the major leagues, and the way our major league coaches are able to work with our minor league guys, the way our performance staff is able to tie in to what our pitching coaches or hitting coaches are doing, take that into the weight room and recovery. I think it is just how cohesive and collaborative we are as a group.
The Dodgers ownership group should receive similar praise as they identified the analytical revolution early on and spent millions hiring the very best talent to execute their vision. All in all, this success has had a real impact on the team's bottom line. The Dodgers now bring in more than $600 million in annual revenue, primarily driven by that huge TV contract they signed back in 2015. The team's valuation has also increased, going from $2.15 billion in 2012 to $6.3 billion today. That valuation makes the Dodgers the second most valuable team in all of baseball, behind only the New York Yankees, the team which, of course, they just beat in 5 games to win a world championship. So what should organizations around the league learn from this? Well, if you want to win big, you got to have the right people, the right money, and a whole lot of calculators.